Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World. Today, we're talking about a coin that's been quietly gaining a lot of attention in the numismatic world. It's a 90 Washington quarter dollar, and while this coin might seem like just another quarter at first glance, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. If you're a coin collector or just someone who loves discovering hidden treasures, stick around because this coin might just be the jackpot you've been looking for. The Washington Quarter series has been a staple of U.S. coinage since 1932, but the 1990 edition of this quarter holds a certain charm. The design features George Washington on the obverse, designed by John Flanagan, and on the reverse, you'll find the classic eagle perched on an olive branch, symbolizing peace and strength. So, what makes the 1990 Washington quarter dollar stand out? Well, most of these quarters are still circulating today, so you might think they're just another dime a dozen. However, there are certain rarities and errors that make specific 1990 quarters exceptionally valuable. And when we're talking about coin collecting, it's those small details that make all the difference. Let's talk about error coins, because this is where the real treasure lies. One of the most sought-after errors in the 1990 Washington quarter dollar series is the double die obverse error. This happens when the minting die is improperly aligned during the coin striking process, causing the image of George Washington to appear doubled or shifted in certain places. This error creates a unique, misaligned design that is highly sought after by collectors. And when a double die error is found, the value of the coin increases dramatically, especially if the error is clearly visible. Another thing to watch for is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin is improperly aligned on the die, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing or misaligned. This creates a distinctive, one-of-a-kind coin that collectors are eager to get their hands on. The more extreme the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. So, if you find a 1990 Washington quarter with part of the design missing or shifted, you could be holding on to a rare gem worth a lot more than its face value. Now, let's talk about condition, because just like with any collectible, the state of the coin can significantly impact its value. A well-preserved 1990 Washington quarter, one that has been kept in pristine condition with minimal wear, is far more valuable than a coin that has been heavily circulated. If you find a coin with sharp details, no visible scratches, and no tarnish, you're looking at something that could be worth far more than just 25 cents. And here's the exciting part: even without errors, if you find a 1990 Washington quarter in uncirculated or mint condition, it can fetch a nice price due to the demand for well-preserved, low-mintage coins. These quarters aren't as rare as some of the older coins in the series, but if you've got one in perfect condition, you could still be sitting on a valuable piece of history. Now, let's get to the real question: just how much could a 1990 Washington quarter be worth if you find one with a double die error, off-center strike, or in perfect condition? Well, it's possible that your coin could be worth an impressive $74,500. Yes, you heard that right, $74,500 for a single quarter. That's a huge return on a coin that might have just been sitting in your pocket, unnoticed. So, what's the takeaway here? If you've got a 1990 Washington quarter in your collection, or if you come across one in your change, take a closer look. Check for any signs of minting errors like double die strikes or off-center misprints. And if it's in mint condition, don't overlook its potential value. You could have a coin worth far more than you thought. Today we're diving into something truly exciting: the 1965 Washington quarter dollar. Now, most of us know the Washington quarter series, but did you know that the 1965 Washington quarter is one of the most valuable coins to look out for? What may seem like just another standard quarter could actually be worth a small fortune if you know what to look for. So, if you're a coin collector or just someone who enjoys hunting for hidden treasures, you'll want to stick around for this one, because we're about to reveal just how much this coin is really worth, and why it could be sitting in your change right now. First, let's take a quick look at the history of the 1965 Washington quarter. This year marks a turning point in U.S. coinage. As many of you know, the 1960s was a time of major change in America, and the minting of coins was no exception. With the 1965 quarter, the U.S. government made a significant shift. Previously, quarters were made of 90% silver, but with the rising costs of silver during the 1960s, the government switched to a clad composition, meaning the 1965 quarter is made of copper-nickel rather than silver. This change created a subtle but important distinction between the pre-1965 and post-1965 quarters, making coins from this era even more interesting to collectors. Now, you might be wondering, if it's made of copper-nickel, how can a 1965 quarter be worth so much? Well, that's where things get really interesting. While most 1965 Washington quarters are still relatively common, there are a few key factors that make certain coins incredibly valuable, and it all comes down to rarity and minting errors. Let's talk about the errors that collectors are absolutely crazy about. The 1965 quarter is known for a few significant minting mistakes that can dramatically increase the value of the coin. One of the most sought-after errors is the D/D mint mark variety. This occurs when the mint mark, which is located on the reverse side of the coin near the bottom of the Washington quarter, is doubled. Instead of the usual single D mint mark, collectors have found coins where the D is stacked on top of another D, creating a distinct D/D error. This error is incredibly rare and can send a coin's value skyrocketing, sometimes well into the thousands, but that's not all. Another important factor that contributes to the value of the 1965 Washington quarter is its condition. As we all know, condition is one of the most important factors in determining a coin's worth. High-grade coins that have sharp details, minimal wear, and no tarnishing or scratches are always in high demand. If you happen to find a 1965 Washington quarter that's been well preserved and kept in mint condition, you could have a very valuable coin on your hands. Coins that were carefully stored or kept in uncirculated condition can be worth far more than their face value. Now, let's talk about the value, because this is where things get really exciting. If you happen to come across a 1965 Washington quarter with that elusive D/D mint mark error, or one that's in excellent condition, the value could be far higher than you expect. While most of these coins are still relatively affordable, those with the right errors and in perfect condition can fetch an impressive $79,000. Yes, you heard that right, $79,000 for a single quarter. Imagine finding a coin that's worth more than your car, your house, or even your vacation to somewhere exotic, just by checking your pocket change. So, if you've got a 1965 Washington quarter, now is the time to get a good look at it. Check for any minting errors, especially the D/D error, and examine its condition carefully. A quarter that's been well preserved or features one of these rare minting mistakes could be worth far more than just 25 cents, and if you're out there hunting for coins, be sure to keep your eyes peeled for this special year. With the 1965 Washington quarter, you just might come across a hidden treasure that could make you a pretty penny, literally. Today we've got something truly fascinating to talk about, the 1973 Washington quarter dollar. This seemingly ordinary coin is hiding a serious treasure for those who know where to look. If you're a coin collector or simply someone who loves discovering valuable coins, you're going to want to stay tuned because this one could be worth far more than its face value. Let's start with a bit of history. The 1973 Washington quarter was minted during an interesting time in U.S. history. By this point, the Washington quarter series had been around for over 4 decades, with George Washington's image gracing the front since 1932. But in 1973, this coin was produced at a time when the U.S. was dealing with various economic challenges, including inflation and the oil crisis. This gives the 1973 quarter a unique place in American history. Now, while most of the 1973 Washington quarters are fairly common and not worth much more than their face value of 25 cents, there's something that makes certain 1973 quarters extremely valuable, and it's all about rarity and errors. These two factors play a huge role in determining whether a coin is worth just pocket change or if it could be a hidden treasure. One of the main factors that make this coin so valuable are the minting errors that occurred during the production process. Over the years, collectors have found certain 1973 quarters with distinctive errors that can significantly increase their worth. The most sought after of these errors are die cracks and double strikes. Let me explain. A die crack happens when there's a crack or damage in the die used to strike the coin, which causes the design to appear in an unusual way on the coin. These cracks can create unique patterns on the coin, and some collectors specifically search for these rare, damaged die coins because they are so distinctive and unusual. Another error that can make a 1973 quarter valuable is a double strike. This happens when the coin is struck more than once by the minting die, causing part of the design to overlap. If you find a 1973 Washington quarter with a double strike, especially if the second strike is off-center or creates an interesting overlapping effect, you could have a highly valuable coin in your possession. Double strikes are extremely rare, and collectors are always on the lookout for coins with this type of error. Now, it's not just errors that can make the 1973 Washington quarter special. The condition of the coin is crucial to its value. As with most coins, the better the condition, the higher the value. A pristine, uncirculated coin is far more valuable than a worn or heavily circulated one. So, if you happen to come across a 1973 quarter that's been well kept, free from scratches, stains, or other damage, you could be looking at something that's worth a lot more than just a quarter. So, let's talk about the value, because this is where it gets exciting. If you happen to find a 1973 Washington quarter with a rare minting error, like a die crack or double strike, or if you have one that's been kept in perfect condition, it could be worth a significant amount. In fact, some collectors have been willing to pay as much as $67,000 for a 1973 Washington quarter that fits these criteria. That's right, $67,000 for a coin that you might have passed by without a second thought. It's truly amazing how much a rare coin like the 1973 Washington quarter can be worth, especially if it has an error or is in outstanding condition. Even if you don't have one of these rare errors, a well-preserved coin from this year could still fetch a nice price, thanks to its historical significance and limited mintage. So, next time you're going through your change or flipping through your coin collection, keep a sharp eye out for that 1973 Washington quarter. Look for any signs of minting errors or check the condition of the coin carefully. If you find one with the right characteristics, you could be holding on to a valuable piece of American history. Today, we're diving into the 1978 Washington quarter dollar, a coin that might just be sitting quietly in your collection or your spare change, waiting to make you a small fortune. Now, when you think of a regular quarter, you probably don't expect it to be worth anything more than 25 cents, right? But the 1978 Washington quarter is anything but ordinary. In fact, it holds a fascinating story that could have you looking at your loose change in a whole new light. So let's jump right in and uncover why this quarter could be worth far more than you might think. First, let's take a quick look at the history behind the 1978 Washington quarter. By this time, the Washington quarter series had been around for nearly 50 years, with George Washington's image still gracing the front of the coin. What makes the 1978 quarter interesting is that it was minted during a period when the United States was undergoing major economic shifts. The country was dealing with inflation, energy crises, and the general economic turbulence of the 1970s. This makes coins from this era not only important for their design and composition but also for the historical context in which they were minted. But what really makes the 1978 Washington quarter stand out in the world of collectors is its rarity, the errors that occurred during its minting, and the condition in which the coin was kept. These factors can drastically affect its value and could very well make a common quarter worth thousands of dollars. Let's talk about the errors first. While most of the 1978 Washington quarters were minted and circulated without any issues, a few of them had minting mistakes that turned them into some of the most valuable quarters in the world. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die variety. If you're not familiar with what a double die error is, let me explain. It happens when the coin is struck twice by the minting die, causing the design to appear slightly doubled. This could result in a doubled date or doubled lettering on the coin, which is highly desirable to collectors because it's rare and distinctive. Another rare error you might find is a clipped planchet. This happens when the metal strip that is used to create the coin is improperly cut, causing part of the design to be missing or misaligned. A clipped planchet error can make a coin look unusual, but it's this very abnormality that makes it incredibly valuable. Imagine holding a coin that's missing a chunk, yet, it's worth thousands more than a standard quarter. That's the kind of treasure you're looking for with the 1978 Washington quarter, but it's not just errors that make this coin special. Condition is absolutely key. If you have a 1978 Washington quarter that has been kept in mint condition, then you've got yourself a valuable piece. Coins that have been well preserved, without scratches, discoloration, or wear from circulation, can fetch much higher prices. An uncirculated quarter that still retains its original shine and crisp details is a hot commodity in the world of coin collecting. So, what about the value? Well, here's where things get exciting. If you happen to come across a 1978 Washington quarter that's in perfect condition, or one with one of those rare minting errors like the double die or clipped planchet, you could be sitting on a coin worth a staggering $77,000. Yes, you heard that right, $77,000 for a single quarter. To put that into perspective, that's enough money to buy a new car, take an amazing vacation, or even invest in your future. All from something as small and unassuming as a quarter. Imagine the excitement of finding a quarter in your pocket or your collection that could be worth such a hefty sum. It's this kind of potential that makes coin collecting so thrilling and so full of possibilities. So, how can you identify these valuable 1978 Washington quarters? Start by checking for any obvious errors like the double die or misaligned strikes. And of course, always pay attention to the condition of the coin. A quarter that's well preserved and free from any wear or damage could potentially be the goldmine you've been waiting for. In conclusion, the 1978 Washington quarter dollar is a coin you definitely want to keep an eye out for. It might just be the hidden gem in your collection or the next great discovery that could set you up with a small fortune. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, this coin is a perfect reminder of how rare errors and exceptional condition can make an ordinary coin worth extraordinary amounts. Today, we're exploring a gem from the world of Washington quarters, the 1994 Washington quarter dollar. You might be thinking, a 1994 quarter? That's just a regular coin, right? Well, think again. There's much more to this coin than meets the eye, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why this seemingly ordinary coin could actually be worth a small fortune. Let's start by taking a quick look at the history behind the 1994 Washington quarter. This year marked a period when the United States was still using the classic Washington design that's been featured on the quarter since 1932. However, the 1990s were a time of economic transition, and coins from this era have gained significant interest from collectors who are drawn to the period's unique characteristics. The 1994 quarter was part of the broader effort to modernize the nation's coinage, but what sets this one apart is its rarity and the potential errors that could turn a simple quarter into a highly sought-after treasure. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what makes the 1994 Washington quarter such an exciting find for collectors. The coin itself might appear at first glance like any other standard quarter, but here's where it gets interesting. While many of these coins were minted in large quantities and circulated regularly, there were a few key errors that could make your 1994 quarter worth thousands of dollars. One of the most notable errors you might encounter is the double die error. If you're not familiar with this, a double die occurs when the coin is struck multiple times, causing the design, such as the date or lettering, to appear doubled. This error is highly prized by collectors because it's a clear sign of a unique coin, and finding one with a double die can skyrocket its value. But wait, that's not the only type of error you should be on the lookout for. Another error that's been seen with some 1994 Washington quarters is the misaligned die error. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, causing the design to be off-center. These misaligned strikes make the coin appear unusual and unique, and just like the double die error, they're much more valuable than a regular, perfectly struck coin. Of course, it's not just about errors that make this coin valuable. Condition is key when it comes to coins. The 1994 Washington quarter wasn't a rare coin when it was originally released, but the number of uncirculated examples is much smaller now. If you happen to have a well-preserved 1994 quarter, one that has been kept in pristine condition without any wear and tear, it could be worth significantly more than you might expect. A coin in mint condition can demand higher prices in the market simply because of its rarity and the demand for well-preserved examples. And now, here's the part you've all been waiting for. Just how much could your 1994 Washington quarter be worth? Well, if you've got a coin that has one of those rare errors, or if you've got a pristine example that has been carefully stored over the years, you could be looking at a coin worth up to $58,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $58,000 for a single quarter. It's an incredible amount of money for a coin that many people might just overlook in their loose change. So, how can you identify a valuable 1994 Washington quarter? Well, start by inspecting the date and design for any signs of doubling. Look closely at the letters and numbers. If you spot any doubling, you've got yourself a double die error. Also, check the alignment of the coin. If it seems off-center, then it could be a misaligned die error. And of course, always consider the condition of the coin. Well-preserved examples in mint condition are always in demand. In conclusion, the 1994 Washington quarter is a perfect example of how a relatively modern coin can still hold incredible value. It might look like an ordinary piece of change, but for those who know what to look for, it could be a goldmine. Whether it's the double die error, the misaligned die error, or simply a coin in pristine condition, the 1994 Washington quarter is a coin that every collector should keep an eye out for. So, check your pocket change, dig through your old collections, and take a closer look at your 1994 Washington quarters. You never know, you might just have one of those rare, valuable coins that's worth a small fortune. That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed learning about the 1994 Washington quarter and all its hidden potential. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can stay updated on all the latest coin discoveries. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy collecting.